I want to start today with a concept that, well, frankly, it terrifies a lot of managers.
Oh, I know this one.
It's this piece of advice that if you follow it, it almost feels like you're trying to make yourself obsolete.
Right.
The idea is this. If you want to be powerful, truly powerful, you have to give your power away.
It's the ultimate leadership paradox, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
we're wired to think of power as a finite thing,
Like a pie.
exactly like a pie. If I give you a slice of my authority, my slice gets smaller. If I let you make the final call, then by definition, I'm less powerful.
And when you're less powerful, you're usually the first one out the door when restructuring happens. So the instinct, of course, is to hoard it.
Of course, keep the keys, keep the information, keep all the control.
But today we're looking at Chapter 9 of the Leadership Challenge. It's called Strengthen Others, and the authors are basically arguing that this hoarding instinct is what actually kills your career.
It kills your career, and it absolutely crushes your team's performance. The whole argument here is that power isn't a zero-sum game. It's expandable.
It's expandable?
Yeah, when you give it away, the total amount of power in the organization, it actually increases.
Okay, that sounds great on, a motivational poster, but let's get practical. How do you do that without completely losing control of the ship?
Right.
Because there's a really fine line between empowerment and just chaos.
That is the fear, isn't it? Just total chaos. But the research in this chapter, it breaks it down into two very specific pillars. It's not just about letting go.
Okay.
It's about, one, enhancing self-determination, and two, developing competence. And you absolutely cannot have one without the other.
All right, let's start with self-determination, giving people choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to push back on this a bit. There's a story in the source material about a guy named Anthony Panuccio. He's a director at a security software company.
Right, the back-to-basics story.
Yes. So his team is struggling. They're kind of confused about their roles. And his big empowerment move was to create a massive playbook.
A huge one.
Yeah, he and the team spent a whole year documenting every single daily, weekly, and monthly task. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like empowerment. That sounds like a straitjacket. I mean, if my boss handed me a checklist for my entire day, I'd feel like a robot, not a leader.
I think most people would react that way at first. But you have to look at why he did it. The team was just drowning in decision fatigue.
Okay.
They were burning so much mental energy just on the routine stuff, like who do I email for this, or what's the protocol for that they had nothing left for the real problems.
So by locking down the routine, he was trying to free up bandwidth for other things.
Exactly. You can think of it as reducing cognitive load. Panuccio's insight was that you define the basics, the non-negotiables.
Right.
By automating that part of the job, he actually gave them total freedom on the how.
The text actually quotes him. He says something like, you can't prescribe customer interactions at all.
Yes. He essentially said, look, here's the floor. The foundation is solid so you won't fall through. But the ceiling, there is no ceiling.
I see.
Because the basics were handled, his team could finally use their judgment on the complex, creative stuff, like dealing with a really angry customer.
So structure doesn't have to equal control. Structure can actually be a platform for control.
When it's done right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the difference between, say, a cage and a guardrail.
Ooh, I like that.
One traps you, the other just lets you go faster without driving off a cliff.
But what happens when you don't have those guardrails? Or, worse, when the manager just refuses to share the wheel? I mean, the data in this chapter it's honestly depressing.
You're looking at the pride statistics, I'm guessing.
I am. The authors connected the dots between how much choice a leader gives
Yeah.
and how proud the team is to actually work there.
The numbers are so stark. When leaders almost never give freedom or choice, only 1% of their team strongly agrees they're proud to tell people where they work.
1%. That's basically zero.
It is zero.
It means if you are a command and control micromanager, statistically, nobody on your team is proud to be there. They're just collecting a paycheck.
They're what we call social loafers. They're there, but they are not engaged. But then you look at the flip side.
Right.
When leaders frequently give that latitude and choice, the pride number jumps to 77%.
That is just a massive difference. It suggests autonomy isn't some nice-to-have perk like, free snacks.
Oh, it's not.
It's the primary driver of engagement.
Because autonomy signals trust. And this gets us to that idea of latitude. You can't just tell people you trust them. You have to build systems that actually prove it.
Which brings up the tale of two stores. from the text. I really liked this part because it shows how company policies can actively make employees look, well, stupid.
Oh, it's such a painful comparison.
Huh.
So Store Alpha, the author, finds some pants on a sale rack, 60% off, great deal.
Okay.
He goes to the register, and the computer rings it up full price.
Oh, we've all been there. The tag says one thing, the machine says another. And in that kind of low-trust place, the cashier is just helpless.
Completely helpless. She can see the tag, she knows the customer is right, but the system won't let her override the price. She has no meaningful discretion.
So she has to call a manager.
Who's probably upstairs, busy with something else. The line gets longer, everybody's annoyed.
And the message you're sending that cashier is, we don't trust you with $20.
Precisely. You are a cog in a machine.
Mm-hmm.
Now you compare that to Store Beta.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks later, he's buying a suit. He finds a shirt on the wrong rack. Somebody's to put it there by mistake. Technically, the store doesn't have to honor that price.
But the sales associate doesn't call anyone.
Nope. He just looks at it and says, you know what? I'll honor that price. Boom. Problem solved in 10 seconds.
And the customer's happy, buys the suit, buys the shirt, and probably spends way more money.
Right. The irony is that Store Alpha, by trying to control every single penny, probably loses thousands in customer loyalty and, employee turnover.
It's the high cost of low trust.
Exactly. In Store Beta, that employee felt like an owner. He had the latitude to make a business decision. And that ownership, that mentality is so crucial.
The text calls this the IKEA effect, right? Which I think explains why I can't throw away this wobbly bookshelf I built 10 years ago.
It's so true. We overvalue the things we help create. But in a leadership context, it's really about the difference between renting and owning.
The rental car analogy.
It's the best way to think about it. I mean, why don't you wash a rental car before you return it? Or check the oil?
Because it's not mine. I'm just using it. If it breaks down, I'll call them and get another one.
Exactly. If you treat your employees like they're just renting their jobs, micromanaging every move, they won't wash the car.
No.
They won't look for better ways to do things. They just won't care long term.
But here's the problem, and I think this is where a lot of these empowerment programs just crash and burn. You can't just hand the keys to the rental car to someone who doesn't know how to drive.
That's the danger zone.
I mean, if I have a junior employee who's brand new and I just say, hey, you have full autonomy, go figure it out, I'm not empowering them. I'm setting them up for a nervous breakdown.
You are, absolutely. And that is where that second pillar becomes so critical, developing competence.
Okay.
The authors talk about the concept of flow, that psychological state of, peak performance. Flow only happens when you have high challenge and high skill.
So if I give a high challenge, like go run this massive project to someone with low skill, that's not flow, that's anxiety.
It is total panic. And on the other side, if you have a highly skilled person and you give them a low challenge like go fill out these spreadsheets all day, that's just boredom.
So the leader's job is to be a kind of thermostat.
Yeah.
You're constantly adjusting a challenge level to match the skill level.
Right.
And then, and this is the key part, you have to aggressively build their skills so they can handle even more challenge.
Aggressively is the right word. You have to be an educator. There's a great example of Raj Lamai, who managed a tech center in India. He realized his team was incredibly siloed.
The bus factor was too high.
Exactly. If one person got hit by a bus, metaphorically, nobody else knew how to do their job. The whole system was fragile.
So what did he do?
He started this really intense rotation program. Every 4 months, people had to swap roles. And he started these weekly lunch and learn sessions where one person had to teach their job to everybody else.
I have to imagine there was some pushback. Why do I have to learn her job? I have my own work to do.
Oh, I'm sure there was friction. But think about the result. He eliminated all those single points of failure. The team became resilient. And more importantly, the employees became more valuable.
Right.
Their competence grew, which means their confidence grew.
And confidence seems to be the secret ingredient here. There was this study mentioned, the one with the field hockey teams in Turkey, that I actually had to read twice.
It is a surprising finding.
They found that self-confidence was a stronger predictor of performance than actual skill level. It feels wrong.
I know.
I mean, I can be incredibly confident that I can fly a plane, but if I don't know how, we're going to crash.
Well, of course, a certain baseline of skill is assumed. But what the study shows is that between two people of relatively equal skill, the one who believes they can succeed is going to outperform the one who doubts.
Because doubt just consumes mental energy.
Yes. If you feel powerless, your brain is in threat mode, you play it safe, you hesitate, you don't take the shot. A leader's job isn't just to teach the technical stuff, it's to build the psychological belief that the person can actually use that skill.
There is no better example of this than the story of Brian Baker. He took over an Army hospital that was just, it was on life support.
This is such a powerful story. The hospital was toxic. Morale was awful. They were about to lose their accreditation. The staff were literally fighting with each other.
And Brian is a military commander, so the stereotype would be, he walks in, kicks down the door, starts barking orders.
Clean this up, do this, do that. The whole great man theory of leadership. The hero saves the day.
But he didn't do that.
No. He realized the staff were already doctors and nurses. They knew medicine. Competence wasn't the issue. The culture was. They felt totally powerless.
So what did he do instead?
He stopped talking, and he just started listening. He set up a transition team, and all he did was ask questions. How are we going to fix this? What do you think the solution is?
That sounds simple, but it must take incredible discipline for a leader to just sit on their hands and let the team find the answer.
It's excruciating. But by asking them to solve it, he gave the power back to them. He shifted from command and control to serve and support.
And it worked.
It worked. They turned the hospital around, not because Brian taught them how to be doctors, but because he reminded them that they were capable professionals who already knew what to do.
It reminds me of that coaching statistic, that high improvement learners are 4 times more likely to have regular coaching conversations with their managers.
And coaching doesn't mean telling. It means asking. It's what Celia Hodson did with her employee, Fiona.
Oh, Fiona. That story is so relatable. So terrified of public speaking, she would literally hide in the bathroom.
Right. Faking an illness to avoid a meeting. We've all seen that level of anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, if Celia just said, "You're empowered, Fiona, go give the keynote," Fiona would have quit on the spot.
That's that high challenge, low confidence trap all over again.
Exactly. So Celia used scaffolding. She created these small wins. First, just hand out name tags at the door. Super low stakes.
Okay, I can do that. I survived.
Next, introduce one speaker to a small group of 5 people. Okay, survive that too. Now a slightly larger group. She just incrementally increased the challenge as the competence and the confidence grew.
And by the end of the story, Fiona is up on stage presenting awards to a huge crowd and loving it.
She completely surprised herself. And that is the definition of exemplary leadership. It's not just about getting the job done. It's about leaving your people better than you found them.
So if we pull the lens back on all of this, what we're really looking at is a kind of virtuous cycle.
It's a self-reinforcing loop. Step 1, you give power away, latitude, choice, discretion.
Okay.
Step 2, you support that new power by building competence, with skills, information, resources.
Right.
Step 3, the team succeeds and their confidence skyrockets. And then step 4, because they're now confident and capable, you can give them even more power.
And the pie just gets bigger.
The pie becomes infinite. You become a multiplier, not a diminisher.
I really like that distinction, multiplier versus diminisher. So for the listener who's thinking, okay, I buy this, I want to do this, but where do I even start? What's the immediate takeaway?
There is a challenge in the take action section of the chapter that I think is just brilliant. It's a simple litmus test for all of your interactions.
Lay it on us.
For the next week, every time you finish talking to someone on your team, whether it's a Zoom call, an email, whatever, ask yourself one question. Did that person leave feeling more capable or less capable?
Wow. That's a haunting question, because if I just gave them the answer.
If you solved the problem for them, or you just barked in order, they probably left feeling smaller, less capable. You were the hero, they were the bystander.
But if I asked them, what do you think we should do? Or how would you approach this?
Then they leave feeling like their brain actually matters. They leave feeling bigger. And that is how you build a team that can function without you, which paradoxically is what makes you more valuable than ever.
Well, in the spirit of practice, I am going to empower you to make a very high-stakes executive decision.
Oh, no.
Where are we going for lunch? And before you answer, just remember, I am giving you the latitude, but if you choose that salad place again, I may have to micromanage the entire ordering process.
So high challenge, low trust. I see how it is. I will do my best to rise to the occasion.
I believe in you. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Leadership Challenge. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you then. I want to start with a scenario that I think a lot of us have been in, or at least seen. You're in some leadership seminar. You open a book and you see a chapter title like Encourage the Heart.
Hmm.
And your first reaction is just an eye roll.
It's the skepticism reflex.
Yeah.
You see heart and you immediately think fluff.
Exactly. You think, okay, look, I have KPIs to hit, a P&L to manage, and now you want me to do what? Hold hands. It feels like it belongs in a different building, not the boardroom.
Right.
But today, we're doing a deep dive into Chapter 10 of the Leadership Challenge. And I have a feeling you're going to tell me that my skepticism is actually costing me money.
I am going to tell you exactly that. If there's one mission for our deep dive today, it's to just completely dismantle this idea that recognition is a nice to have. We are not talking about being polite.
Okay.
We are talking about hard data that shows encouraging the heart, as they put it, is a critical high-performance mechanism.
So we're really moving from touchy-feely to, I guess, tactical.
Precisely. It turns out the way we respond to expectation and feedback it's biological. It's psychological. If you ignore it, you aren't being tough. You're just being inefficient.
Okay, let's test that. Because the chapter opens with a story about a manager named Joan Nicolo. And I think a lot of people are going to see themselves in her.
Oh, absolutely. Joan was a results-first kind of leader, and she represents this very specific resistance, you see. She wasn't resisting because she was mean.
Oh.
She was resisting it because she was conscientious. She was actually afraid that if she started praising people, she'd be accused of playing favorites.
That's a real fear, though. If I thank you in a meeting and I don't thank the person next to you, I've just created a political headache for myself, haven't I?
That was her whole mindset. I don't have time for the drama. I don't have time for a pep rally. She saw recognition as something for, sensitive types.
Right. Now for a serious environment.
But here's the thing. Her team wasn't performing. The atmosphere was just dry.
So she had to do something. The text says she ran a little experiment.
She did. She basically forced herself to stop looking for errors for a little while, and she started publicly acknowledging specific collaborations. And specific is the key word here.
She wasn't just saying, good job, team.
No, she was pointing out exactly who helped who on what.
And did the team revolt? Did the jealousy she feared just explode?
Not at all. And this is the first big data point for anyone who's skeptical. The jealousy never happened. Instead, communication just broke wide open. Productivity shot up.
So by trying to be fair and neutral, she was actually just starving the team of fuel.
Exactly. She realized her job wasn't just to demand results. It was to create an environment where people wanted to deliver them. And the source breaks this down into two absolute essentials. First, expect the best. And second, personalized recognition.
Okay, let's dig into that first one. Expect the best. I have to be honest, it sounds a little bit like manifesting. If I just believe it hard enough. Is this just positive thinking?
It's a psychological mechanic. It's called the Pygmalion effect.
Okay, refresh my memory on the myth.
So, in Greek mythology, Pygmalion was a sculptor. He carved this statue of a woman. It was so beautiful, he actually fell in love with it. He treated it like it was real.
And the gods brought it to life.
Exactly. Aphrodite brought the statue to life.
It's a great story, but what does that have to do with my quarterly earnings report?
Well, in psychology, the Pygmalion effect describes how people tend to act in ways that are consistent with their leaders' expectations. If you treat someone like a statue that can't move, if you treat them like they're untrustworthy...
They'll basically live down to that expectation.
Unconsciously, yes. They will lower their performance to match your signal.
That's incredibly dangerous. So I can accidentally program my team to fail just by my own private beliefs about them.
Yes, but the inverse is also true. The text cites this self-fulfilling prophecy study, and it's fascinating. They found that if a leader frames a task by saying something like, look, I'm giving you this because I have high expectations and I know you can do it.
Okay.
The effectiveness of that feedback increases by about 40%.
Wait, 40? Just for the framing?
Just by framing the assignment with belief. And it's not just about tasks, it's about trust. There's a chart in the text, figure 10.1, that every manager should tape to their monitor.
I was looking at that. The gap it's massive.
It is night and day. When leaders rarely show confidence in their team, the percentage of people who strongly trust that leader is less than 1%. Basically zero.
So if I'm playing it cool, trying to keep people on their toes by withholding my approval?
You're just ensuring they don't trust you. You're destroying the foundation. But on the other hand, when leaders almost always show confidence, trust sheets up to 79%.
Wow.
The authors use this great metaphor. You can't turn a block of marble into a person, but you can draw out the highest potential that's already in the marble. You have to see the statue before you start carving.
There's a really concrete example of this in the notes. Patty Kozlowski. She walked into a nightmare situation. A tense team. They were sniping at each other. Just a toxic vibe.
A classic deficit mindset. Everyone was focused on what wasn't done. Who dropped the ball, who missed the deadline. And Patty realized she couldn't just, legislate morale.
Right.
So she flipped the script. She started every single meeting by thanking people for what was done.
That feels like such a small thing, though. Thanks for doing your job.
It seems small, but think about the signal. It lowered the collective blood pressure in the room. The team stopped fighting and started wanting to live up to her positive expectation.
And what about the story of Barbara Wang? That one stuck with me because it gets at imposter syndrome. She had to write a business plan, never done it before.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Right, and this is where so many managers fail. They'd say, well, figure it out. But her manager didn't. He told her he'd been watching her work. He knew she could handle it. And Barbara's quote was, "His belief in my skills was what made me believe."
That's the Pygmalion effect right there. But, and I want to play devil's advocate. High expectations are great, but if I just smile and say, I believe in you, but the goal is vague or impossible, that's not leadership, that's delusion.
You are 100% right. Belief without clarity is a disaster. The authors use a scene from Alice in Wonderland to explain this. The croquet match.
Oh, right, where the mallets are flamingos and the balls are hedgehogs.
And the hoops are soldiers walking around. It's total chaos. Alice can't win because the rules keep changing. And the text contrasts this with Sachin Gad at a tech company. His team was miserable. They felt like they were playing flamingo croquet.
So Sachin didn't just give them a pep talk.
No, that would have backfired. He fixed the rules. He established clear guidelines. He started tracking things. He defined the playing field. And the result? A 34% jump in satisfaction and a 55% drop in attrition.
55%. That is a huge number.
It's massive. And it all ties into this concept of flow. You know, that state where you're totally focused. You literally cannot get into flow if you don't know the objective. Clarity releases energy. Ambiguity just freezes it.
Which brings us to feedback. Because if we have clear goals, we need to know if we're hitting them. And the source material takes a big swing at a very popular technique. The feedback sandwich.
The infamous sandwich.
I feel like I was trained to do this.
Yeah.
Say something nice, slide in the criticism, then end with something nice to soften it.
Yeah.
The authors are saying this is bad.
They're saying it's terrible advice. The reason is primacy and recency. When you start with the fluffy praise, the employee isn't really listening. They're just waiting for the but.
Right. Bracing for impact. So the first slice of bread is wasted.
Totally. And then when you try to end with more praise, they're just stinging from the criticism. The whole message gets confused. They argue feedback should just be guidance, coaching, not a criticism sandwich.
Okay, but what's the alternative? What if I say nothing? I think a lot of leaders think, hey, if I'm not yelling at you, you're doing fine.
That's the silence trap. There's a study mentioned on creative problem solving that it honestly terrified me a little. They compared 3 groups.
Well,
one got praise, one got criticism, and one got total silence.
And what happened?
The people who got positive feedback improved, but the people who heard nothing, the silence group, they performed just as badly as the people who were actively criticized.
Wow. So saying nothing is just as bad as being negative.
Silence is damaging. It kills confidence. People would rather have bad news than no news because at least then they know where they stand. Silence is just a vacuum that we fill with paranoia.
Okay, so expect the best, set clear rules, give direct feedback. Let's move to the second essential, personalized recognition. Because nothing feels worse than a reward that feels like a robot sent it.
Bureaucratic recognition. The text gives this painful example of Maurice Chan, an engineer. He won an award for doing great work. But how did he find out?
A generic email and a bank deposit.
Exactly, a database update. He said it felt like a bureaucratic procedure. No one stopped by his desk, no handshake, just a transaction.
And then there's Alexei at the railway. He got a merit citation handed to him in total silence. He couldn't even remember the bonus amount later because the experience itself meant nothing.
And the insight here is that recognition has to be personal, precise, and visible. If you want the polar opposite of the database update, look at the story of the Golden Bone.
I loved this one.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, when I first read it, my first thought was, HR is going to hate this.
Oh, probably. So this manager, Blaze Silberman, takes over a sales team that just feels beaten down. They actually tell him to his face, "We feel like we're being treated like dogs."
That is a brutal thing to hear as a manager.
It is. Now, most managers would get defensive. Blaze leaned into it. He went to a pet store, bought a rawhide dog bone, and spray painted it gold.
A literal golden dog.
Real dog bone.
Yeah.
And he made it a traveling trophy for the top dog of the week. The winner got to keep it on their desk.
It sounds so silly. Did it actually work?
It worked like a charm. It became this coveted thing. The team ended up winning an MVP award. And the cost? Under $40.
So why did that work when Maurice's direct deposit failed? I mean, Maurice got actual money.
Because it was specific to that team's culture. It was an inside joke. It showed that Blaze had actually listened to their complaint, were treated like dogs, and turned it into a badge of honor. It wasn't bureaucratic. It was human.
That makes perfect sense. It's about being seen.
Contrast that with Luis Zavaletta's story. His manager only cared about money. The manager thought, I'll just throw bonuses at them. But the team was totally indifferent. They didn't feel seen. They just felt paid.
So you really, really have to know your people. What motivates them? Public praise, private thanks, money, autonomy.
And that leads right into the social aspect. We think of work as this transactional place, but the data on friendship at work is staggering.
This was the stat that said groups of friends complete 3 times as many projects as groups of acquaintances.
Yes, 3 times. When you do something like the Golden Bone or a specific public thank you, you are building social capital. You're turning acquaintances into a team.
And it seems like the most powerful tool for this isn't a bonus. It's just saying thank you.
It really is. T.C. Lin from a defense company called A Simple Thank You a big victory. And Olivia Lai from a personal care company said it was the #1 non-financial motivator.
There's a number here I want to make sure everyone listening really hears. 81%.
81% of people are willing to work harder for an appreciative manager. Just think about that leverage. You get almost double the discretionary effort just by making people feel seen.
And it drives innovation, too. The source says recognized teams generate twice the number of ideas per month.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If you feel safe and valued, you'll take a risk. If you feel invisible, you keep your head down. You do the bare minimum. You're certainly not going to offer up a new, risky idea.
Before we wrap, I want to highlight one specific tactic from Kevin Jiang at a gaming company. It's such a smart, simple hack that costs nothing.
Oh, the meeting minutes. Yes. Kevin started bolding the names of key contributors in the meeting minutes.
And increasing upper management.
Right. It costs $0. Takes 10 seconds. But think of the impact. If you're on his team, you know your manager isn't stealing your credit. He's broadcasting it. That builds enormous capital.
So bringing this all together, how do we audit ourselves? The text mentions the concept of a ratio of positive to negative comments.
Right. What's often called the Lasada ratio. High-performing teams have a ratio of about 5 positive comments for every 1 negative one.
5 to 1. That feels high. I feel like most business meetings are focused almost entirely on what's wrong.
And that's why many teams underperform. Low-performing teams flip that ratio. It's like 3 negatives for every 1 positive. And positive doesn't mean fake praise. It just means validation. It's a good point. I see where you're going.
And it's not just about the team's performance. It's about actual health.
Yeah.
The source says gratitude makes you physically healthier, more optimistic, less stressed.
Absolutely. The main takeaway for me is this. Encouraging the heart isn't about ignoring problems. It's about shaping an environment where people feel strong enough and supported enough to want to solve those problems.
I love that. It's fuel.
It is emotional fuel for when the work gets hard.
So for everyone listening, here's the challenge for this week, straight from the source. Before you give feedback or recognition next time, ask yourself 2 questions.
Question 1. What could I do to make this a memorable experience?
And question 2. What would make my comment specific and unique for this person?
Don't just copy-paste good job. Make it a golden bone. Make it a bolden name in the minutes.
Exactly. Go out there, expect the best, personalize it, and encourage the heart. Thanks for diving in with us.
Thank you. Okay, so picture this. It's, a Tuesday afternoon. You're in a conference room. It smells like stale coffee. The budget's tight. You're behind on 3 different deadlines, and the energy is just heavy.
We've all been in that room.
Totally. And then someone from the back says, hey, we should plan a team celebration, maybe an awards ceremony. Be honest. What's your immediate gut reaction?
My gut reaction, and I think most managers would agree, is, are you kidding me? We don't have time for fun and games. This is a business.
Exactly. The inner Scrooge just comes roaring out. It
Yeah.
feels like fluff, like a distraction. And honestly, I'm kind of with Scrooge on this one sometimes.
It's a natural reflex. I get it. We're conditioned to see work and celebration as complete opposites. Work is serious, celebration is frivolous.
Right.
But the research we're looking at today from Chapter 11, Celebrate the Values and Victories, it suggests that this Scrooge mentality is actually a massive strategic error.
A strategic error. That's a pretty bold claim for, buying a cake.
It is. But the data shows these celebrations aren't just nice-to-haves. There's a senior fellow, David Campbell, who calls them the punctuation marks of history.
Punctuation marks.
Yeah, think about it. A sentence without any punctuation is just this run-on mess of words. It has no rhythm, no meaning. Campbell argues that without celebrations, organizational life is just an endless stream of tasks. He calls it, and this phrase is just haunting, an endless series of Wednesdays.
Oh, an endless series of Wednesdays. Wow. Okay, that actually hit me in the chest a little. It just perfectly captures that feeling of the grind.
It does. And people don't do their best work in the grind. So our mission today is to figure out how to put those punctuation marks back in. And just to be clear, we are not talking about mandatory fun.
Oh, thank goodness. Because nothing kills morale faster than a forced conga line.
Exactly. We're talking about using ceremony to build community, to reinforce values. We have case studies from, high-tech labs to factory floors.
Yep.
But before we get to the how, we have to tackle your skepticism. Why does a business actually need this?
Yeah, convince me. I can see why I might want a party, but why does the shareholder care?
It all comes down to something sociologists call social capital.
Buzzword alert. Unpack that for me.
Think of it like oil in an engine. Your employees are all the moving parts. Without oil, there's friction, heat, and eventually the whole thing just seizes up. Social capital is the trust and connection that acts as the oil.
So less friction means more speed, which equals more money.
Precisely. And the stats on this are just startling. Gallup did this huge study. They found that the single best predictor of performance was the answer to one question. Do you have a best friend at work?
A best friend? Really, that sounds a little, high school. I'm there to work, not to make friendship bracelets.
That's what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
But look at the numbers. People who said yes to that question were 7 times more likely to be fully engaged in their work.
7 times.
7 times. Because when your best friend is on your team, you're not just accountable to a boss. You're accountable to someone you actually care about. You don't want to let them down.
Okay, so when a leader throws a party, they're not just buying pizza. They're investing in the health of the organization.
They're building the company's immune system.
I'll buy the why. Let's talk about the how, because this is where it usually goes off the rails. You try to do something nice, and it ends up feeling forced, or even worse, just cringeworthy.
The cringe factor is very real.
We've got this story in our notes about a woman named Jennifer Ernst. She's a director at an R&D lab. Now, when I think R&D, I think serious scientists, lab coats, silence.
Right. High intellect, usually low extroversion. A very serious environment.
Exactly. So Jennifer decides she's going to spice up their annual recognition event. And she doesn't just, order a sheet cake. She goes full Hollywood.
She really swung for the fences on this one.
She put up lights to look like theater sconces. She played the sound of an orchestra warming up over the speakers. She had these 20-foot-high graphics of Oscar-like statues.
And here's the kicker. The president of the company, this guy known for being super quiet, very understated, he walks out on stage in a full tuxedo.
Okay, hold on. This is exactly what I'm talking about. If I'm a serious scientist and my boss walks out in a tux, I'm not thinking, wow, what a great culture. I'm thinking, this is deeply embarrassing. Please let me go back to my microscope. How did that not backfire horribly?
It's a razor's edge. Right. It could have been a total disaster. But it worked because of what they celebrated. They didn't just give out generic Employee of the Month plaques. For every single award, a senior manager stood up and told a rich, detailed story about the specific research that person had done.
So the content was serious, even if the wrapper was theatrical.
Precisely. The theatrics were there to elevate the work, not to distract from it. They had video tributes from colleagues. By the end of the night, nearly a quarter of the entire workforce had been recognized in some way.
The text says the room exploded with laughter when the president walked out.
And that laughter is the key. It was a release of tension. It signaled, we take our work very seriously, but we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. It humanized him. The buzz from that event lasted for weeks.
So the lesson is you can go big, but only if the recognition itself is authentic and specific.
100%.
Yeah.
The tuxedo was just the signal flare. The stories, those were the fuel.
Let's talk more about that tension release, because sometimes you don't need a tuxedo. Sometimes you just need lollipops. We've got a story here about the lollipop effect.
Oh, this is one of my favorites.
Oh.
It's so brilliantly low-tech.
This is Mike Sawyer, software security.
Correct. So Mike's running these department-wide meetings, high stress, high stakes. People are arguing, getting defensive. The whole room is just toxic.
And in that meeting, everyone's just protecting their own turf.
Exactly. So Mike needs to change the dynamic.
Right.
He doesn't hire a mediator. He doesn't give a speech. He walks in and just dumps a huge box of Candy Suckers lollipops right in the middle of the conference table.
That's a bold move.
And he just tells everyone to take one. Now, picture it. You have a room full of serious engineers arguing about budgets, but they all have a stick hanging out of their mouths.
It's just absurd.
It's visually ridiculous. Mike said, it's hard to be too combative when you and everyone around you has a sucker in their mouth. It's brilliant. It creates what they call a pattern interrupt.
And I'm guessing that makes people better at solving problems.
Way better. It makes them more creative, less defensive. The research is clear that fun is a predictor of productivity. I think it was something like 81% of employees at Fortune's 100 best companies to work for say they work in a fun environment.
Okay, so we need community, we need fun. But here's the trap. A leader hears this and they think, great, I'll hire a party planner, I'll write a check, and then I'll go back to my office and close the door.
The outsourcing strategy. It's the most common mistake, and it just doesn't work.
Why not? The party still happens. Who cares who planned it?
Because leadership is a relationship. You can't outsource a relationship. If you're not physically there, if you're not the one handing out the award or eating the donut, you're not building that social capital.
There are a couple of charts in the source material here, figures 11.1 and 11.2, that are honestly pretty shocking on this point.
They are devastating. They looked at how often a leader publicly recognizes people versus how valued those people feel. When leaders said they rarely or almost never do it, take a guess at what percentage of their team felt valued.
I'm going to guess it's low. Maybe 20%.
1%.
One. That's basically a statistical error. That means literally nobody feels valued.
Nobody. But when leaders did it very frequently, that number shot up to 76%. It just proves you can't delegate this. You have to be the face of it.
But what if I'm not that rah-rah type? What if I'm an introvert? I can't just go around yelling, fantastic. It would feel so fake.
That's a valid fear. But you don't have to be a cheerleader. We've got the example of Russell Singleton. He ran a capital equipment company, not a cheerleader. But he practiced what he called breaking bread.
Which was just donuts.
Donuts and fruit. Every single morning, he'd hold a quick standing meeting, but he made sure there was food, and he made sure he was there, eating with them.
So the ritual wasn't about the food, it was about his presence.
Exactly. It's management by wandering around, but with a purpose. It's about connection.
Okay, so we've covered the fun stuff. The Oscars, lollipops, donuts. But I want to pivot to something a bit darker. Because celebrating values isn't just about celebrating victories. Sometimes you have to celebrate values when things go terribly wrong.
This is, in my opinion, the most important part of this whole deep dive. It's easy to be a community when things are good. The real test is what happens in a tragedy.
There's a story in here about Lori Armstrong, a chief nursing officer, and I think we need to slow down for this one because it really stopped me in my tracks.
It's a heavy story. The context is a pediatric unit. A young patient, a child, died unexpectedly.
Which is every nurse's absolute nightmare.
Right. And the nurse who was caring for this child was just devastated. She was questioning her competence, her career, everything. She felt like a failure.
Now, in a typical corporate setting, HR might open a file, there'd be a report, people would whisper, but they'd leave her alone.
They'd isolate her, thinking they're being respectful. But Lori Armstrong did the opposite. She didn't send an email. She found out the nurse was sitting alone in a conference room, and she went in.
And she didn't bring a lollipop.
No. She walked in, sat down right next to her, put a hand on her arm, and she didn't try to fix it. She just said, "You are not alone."
You are not alone.
And they just sat there, and they cried together. Lori told her, "We can cry together for all of the patients we have cared for and lost."
That is just an incredible act of vulnerability for a leader.
It is. But look at what it communicated. It said, "We value your compassion here. Your grief is proof that you were a good nurse, not a bad one."
So what happened to the nurse?
She later wrote a letter to Lori. She said that single moment saved her career. She ended up going back to school. She realized that she couldn't save every life, but she could still provide incredible care.
It goes right back to that social support research. If Lori hadn't gone in that room, that nurse probably would have burned out. The hospital would have lost her.
And the team would have learned a terrible lesson, that when you fail, you're on your own. Instead, they learned that when you hurt, the tribe gathers around you. That is celebrating your values in the hardest way possible.
It really redefines the word celebration, doesn't it? It's not about balloons. It's about witnessing. Witnessing the work, witnessing the pain.
Witnessing is the perfect word. And one of the best ways we witness is through storytelling.
Ah, yes. The Great War Against Death by PowerPoint.
The sources are so clear on this. You can't teach values with a bullet point.
Yeah.
You put up a slide that says, "We value bravery." People will just check their email. But you tell a story about bravery and they'll never forget it.
There's a great example of this with a manager named Dilpreet Singh. His team was just in a slump. Tired, struggling, ready to settle.
A good enough face. Deadly.
Right. So Dilpreet invites them to his house for pizza, and he tells them to bring their families.
Which immediately raises the stakes.
For sure. And while they're eating, he tells a story. He talks about a conversation he had with a colleague's 12-year-old daughter. The daughter had heard her mom complaining about how hard the work was, but she didn't see it as complaining. She told her mom, "I admire you so much. You're so brave for doing something this hard."
Wow. The child saw bravery, or the adult just saw drudgery.
And Dilpreet told that story to the whole room. He reframed their struggle. It wasn't a failure, it was a heroic journey.
He changed the narrative.
And the room just exploded. They cheered. They went back to work the next week and crushed it. The facts hadn't changed. The work was still hard. But the story about the work had changed everything.
And that's a leader's job.
Yeah.
To supply the narrative that makes the suffering meaningful.
Okay, we've gone from Scrooge to tuxedos to tragedy. For the listener driving to work right now thinking, okay, I buy it. Where do I start? Let's get practical.
Step one is to stop waiting for inspiration. You have to schedule it.
Yeah.
If it's not on the calendar, the endless series of Wednesdays will just eat it alive.
The text lists different types of celebrations. Cyclical ones like anniversaries, triumphs like a product launch. But there was one category that stood out to me as unusual. Rituals for comfort and letting go.
This is a powerful one that almost nobody uses.
How do you schedule a letting go party?
Think about a project that failed, or a beloved old software system you're finally decommissioning. Usually we just try to ignore it and move on, but that leaves this emotional residue.
Do you hold a funeral for it?
Metaphorically, yes.
Right.
I've seen teams hold a funeral for an old server. They wrote eulogies, they smashed a hard drive, they laughed, shared memories, and then they were ready for the new system. It grants permission to move on.
Okay, before we wrap up, I have to ask about the one thing that holds people back from this. Jealousy. The fear that if I give an award to Bob, Susan's going to be mad.
Why didn't I get recognized?
Exactly. So the safe option is to just recognize no one.
Which is the worst option. The source material calls this the golden rule of recognition. You have to get over that fear. When you celebrate Bob, you're not just rewarding Bob. You're using Bob as a living example of the group's values.
So Bob is just the avatar for the value you want to promote.
Precisely. If Susan gets jealous, that's a different problem to solve. But if you hide the recognition, you hide the standard. You leave everyone guessing what good even looks like.
If you hide the recognition, you hide the standard. That's the takeaway right there.
It is. You have to be brave enough to point and say, this is what we want more of.
So let's bring it all home. We started with this idea that celebrations are fluff.
And we found that they're actually the glue. They build social capital, they create psychological safety, and in the dark times, they provide the support that keeps people from breaking.
Turns out Scrooge was just bad at business.
Terrible leader. I bet he had a very high turnover rate.
You know that phrase you mentioned at the start, an endless series of Wednesdays? It's been sticking with me this whole time.
It's a haunting image, isn't it?
It is. And if I can just leave our listener with one final thought, it's this. We spend the majority of our waking life in this work box. If we strip that box of emotion, of friendship, of laughter, and ritual, aren't we just stripping our own lives of their humanity?
That's the big question. We try to balance work and life, but work is a huge part of life.
So don't let this next week just be a blur. Find a way to put a punctuation mark in there somewhere. Buy the donuts, tell a story, sit with someone who's struggling. Just don't let it be another Wednesday.
Make it count.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that I think for a lot of us is a bit of a love-hate thing.
Mm.
Leadership. And I don't mean the big flashy kind, not the TED Talk on a stage or the Forbes cover.
Right.
I mean the actual messy day-to-day work of trying to get people to move forward when it feels like the world is, on fire.
It is a messy business, and we're diving into the leadership challenge, specifically that section on treating challenge as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, if you're waking up hoping today's the day things finally get back to normal, the authors have some pretty bad news for you.
Let's just start there, because that's the dream, isn't it? Just get me through this quarter, or once this project is over, things will calm down.
Right.
But this research, it makes that whole mindset seem, well, kind of delusional.
It is, unfortunately. The authors, Kouzes and Posner, they argue pretty forcefully that normal just isn't a thing anymore.
It doesn't exist.
Or if it does, its defining features are ambiguity, chaos, unpredictability. They say we have to stop seeing all that turbulence as a disruption to the work.
You're saying the turbulence is the work.
That's it, exactly.
That is a tough mental shift, though. I mean, we're all wired to want stability.
Of course.
So when they say embrace the chaos, is that just a buzzword, or is there a real practical reason for it?
Oh, it's practical. Think about it. Leadership isn't really needed when everything's on autopilot. If the path is clear, the sun is shining, and everyone knows what to do, you don't need a leader. You need a manager, an administrator.
You just need someone to check the boxes.
Exactly. Leadership becomes essential only when you don't know the answers.
So chaos is the job description.
It's the whole reason for the job. They call challenge the crucible for leadership, and they've got this just massive data set to back it up.
Right. This is the 40 years of research.
40 years, yeah. They collected thousands of stories they call personal best leadership experiences.
Just asking people about the one time they were at their absolute peak.
Tell us about a time you performed at your best as a leader.
And I'm guessing no one said, well, it was that one Tuesday when my inbox was empty and I went home early.
Not one. Zero.
Wait, really? Zero?
Literally zero.
Yeah.
In 4 decades, thousands of cases. 100% of those personal best stories involve some kind of major challenge, a crisis, an adversity.
So nobody does their best work when things are just fine.
Never. Which is actually, good news.
How is that good news?
Well, if you're stressed out, if your budget just got cut, or a key person quit.
Which is everyone right now.
Exactly. The data says you're not in a bad situation for leadership. You're in the perfect situation for it.
That's a great reframe. But it does bring up that other problem.
The born leader myth.
Yeah, the great man theory. That you need a certain kind of personality or a specific degree, or you have to be, I don't know, a certain height to handle that kind of pressure.
The I'm not a general, I'm just an accountant excuse. And this is where the data just completely demolishes that idea. The researchers looked at what actually drives team engagement. They tested all those demographic factors: age, gender, industry, where you went to school.
And you'd think those would matter. An experienced leader must be better than a new one, right?
Yeah, that's the assumption. But when they ran the analysis, all of those factors combined, they accounted for only 0.3% of the difference in engagement.
Hold on, 0.3.
0.3.
That's nothing. That's a rounding error.
It's statistical noise. It basically says it doesn't matter who you are, young, old, man, woman, tech, nonprofit. None of it predicts whether your team is engaged.
So if the who you are part doesn't matter, what's the other 99.7%?
It's what you do. It's your behavior. The frequency of your leadership behaviors explains almost everything.
Okay, let's talk about frequency, because that word seems important here. It sounds like just another way of saying being a leader.
It's a little different. Think of it like going to the gym.
Yeah.
We all have muscles. The difference between a powerlifter and me isn't that they have some special kind of muscle fiber. It's that they engage in the behavior of lifting heavy things way more often, more frequently.
So leadership isn't a personality. It's just reps.
It's reps. And they have another incredible stat on this from their LPI assessment tool.
The one that millions of people have taken.
Yeah. And they found that 99.967% of people score above 0 on leadership behaviors.
Everyone.
Basically everyone, which means it's not a binary. You're not either a leader or not a leader.
Like you're pregnant or you're not.
Exactly. It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
We all have the capacity. The only difference between the best leaders and everyone else is that the best ones just do the reps more often.
Can you give me an example of that? Like, what's a behavior a top leader does frequently that a bottom tier leader just does once in a while?
Sure. Take inspiring a shared vision. A low-frequency leader might mention the company mission at the annual kickoff meeting. And that's it. They did it technically. But a high-frequency leader, they connect the daily work back to that vision in one-on-ones, in emails, in team meetings. They're doing the reps every single day.
I like that. It makes it less about magic and charisma and more about just consistency.
It's completely learnable.
But if that's true, if everyone can do it and demographics are irrelevant, why do we all have this, like, default image of a leader?
That's a great question. If I say picture a leader, who pops into your head?
I mean, honestly, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a president, someone in a suit.
That's the default for most of us. But the researchers asked a much better question. Not who's a famous leader, but who is your most important role model for leadership?
So who actually taught you?
Yes. Who did you learn from?
And I'm guessing the answer wasn't Jeff Bezos.
Not even close. Business leaders, as a category, only got 10% of the votes. And political leaders,
The ones we see constantly.
a tiny 2%.
2%. That's shockingly low.
It is. We don't learn how to lead from people on TV. We learn it from the people we see at the dinner table.
Family.
Family members made up 51% of the answers. Moms, dads, older siblings. Then came teachers and coaches at about 10%, and your direct boss at 16%.
So if you add that up, more than 3/4 of our leadership education comes from just normal people in our immediate circle.
Leadership is local. That is the single biggest takeaway. We learn by watching how our manager handles a tough client or how our coach handles a loss.
That's empowering, but also, frankly, a little terrifying.
Terrifying. Why?
Because it means you're being watched. I'm being watched. If you're a parent, a manager, even just the senior person on a team, you're somebody's textbook.
You are 100% somebody's textbook. And the stakes are huge when they connect that frequency idea back to this.
This is the recommendation stat.
Yeah. If your manager is in the top 20% for frequency of leadership behaviors, you are nearly 10 times more likely to recommend them as a great leader. It's 38% versus less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
It's a cliff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing the reps, you are basically invisible to your team. Or worse.
You create a vacuum.
Yeah.
And this is the gap we have to close. We know leadership is learned locally, mostly from family.
So we learn by accident.
We learn by osmosis. We just absorbed whatever was around us, good or bad. But if you want to be in that top 20%, you can't be accidental anymore. You have to get intentional about what you're modeling.
So how do we do that? Be a good role model is pretty vague.
It is, and the book gives a really practical framework for this. It's an acronym, LIFE.
Okay.
It's a visualization exercise. They ask you to imagine it's 10 years from now, and you're at a tribute ceremony in your honor, maybe a retirement party.
Right. So I'm picturing the room, the people.
And someone who worked for you gets up to give a speech. LIFE is what you hope they say.
Okay, let's break it down. L is for
Lessons. What lessons did you teach them? And not just, how to fill out a spreadsheet.
deeper stuff.
Yeah. Did you teach them how to handle failure? Did you teach them that it's okay to be vulnerable? As a leader, you're a teacher. So what's on your syllabus?
That's a good gut check. Because I could ask myself, what I accidentally taught my team this week, maybe that panic is the right way to hit a deadline.
Exactly. So that's L. Next is I for ideals.
What you stood for.
What values did you live by, especially when it was hard? When you missed a target, did you take responsibility or did you blame your team? People remember what you stand for when it costs you something.
There's that crucible idea again. Okay, F is for feelings.
This is the one people think is soft, but it's maybe the most important. People won't remember the specifics of a project from 10 years ago, but they will never, ever forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, we've all had the boss who just made you feel small.
And we've hopefully had the one who made you feel like you could do anything. That feeling is what drives people.
And the last one, E is for evidence.
The receipts.
Right, the proof.
The tangible results. Did you turn the project around? Did you grow the team? Did you deliver it? It all has to lead to something.
So lessons, ideals, feelings, evidence. The idea is to literally write that speech for yourself and then work backward from it.
You're reverse engineering your own legacy. If you want them to say, she taught me to be brave, Well, you have to find an opportunity to be brave this week.
It sounds simple, but it requires a ton of humility, doesn't it?
It really does. And the authors point out something beautiful about that word. Humility and human come from the same Latin root, humus,
Humus. Like the earth.
The ground. To be human, to be humble, is to be down to earth. The big danger for leaders is that you get separated from the ground. You get the fancy title, the corner office.
You start breathing different air.
You do. And the best leaders fight that every day. They stay grounded. They admit they messed up. They say, I don't know. Because the moment you pretend you're perfect, you stop learning. And when you stop learning, you're done leading. Which brings us to the final barrier. We know we have the capacity. We have a framework like LIFE. And yet there's this huge gap between knowing and doing. And the book uses that old riddle to explain it.
The frog riddle.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Everybody's heard the frog riddle. It's a cliche.
It is a total cliche. But, things become cliches for a reason. Because they're true.
Okay. Remind us.
12 frogs are sitting on a log. 7 decide to jump off. How many are left on the log?
And the answer isn't 5, it's 12.
They do 12. Because deciding to do something is not the same as doing it.
And that's where most of us live, right? We decide to be a better leader. We decide to listen more. We read the book. We listen to the deep dive. We agree with all of it.
We mistake understanding for action.
But we don't actually jump.
Exactly. We think because we get the concept, we're doing it. But that frequency data we talked about, it doesn't measure your good intentions. It only measures what you actually did.
So what's the final push? What makes someone actually jump off the log?
The book ends with a story about that. They interview Major General John H. Stanford.
And he's a serious guy. This is not a feel-good life coach.
Not at all. Vietnam vet, commanded thousands of troops, a tough, hardened leader. And they ask him for the secret to his success.
And he doesn't say discipline or strategy.
He says the secret to success is staying in love.
Staying in love. That's not what I expected.
No. And he didn't mean it romantically. He meant you have to stay in love with leading itself, stay in love with the people doing the work, stay in love with what your organization is trying to do in the world.
It reframes the whole thing. We talk about leadership like it's a game of chess, all tactics and moves. But he's saying it's an affair of the heart.
He is. And it makes sense, right? It answers the why. Why would you step into chaos? Why bother being humble? Why do the reps every day? You're not going to do it for a bigger paycheck, not really.
Not in the long run.
You only do it if you genuinely, deeply care about the people you're leading and the mission you're on.
If you don't love the team, you won't fight for them.
Exactly. Without the heart, all the techniques are just manipulation.
Right.
But with it, they become leadership.
So let's bring this home for everyone listening who is looking at a really chaotic week ahead.
Okay.
We've established that chaos is the job, so stop waiting for it to go away. We've established you have the capacity. That 99.9% stat is your proof. And we know that someone right now is watching you to figure out how to act.
The stage is set. You're the only variable left.
So here's the final thought. We know you've probably decided to be a better leader. But as you walk into your next meeting or walk through your front door tonight, ask yourself this. Are you just sitting on the log? Or did you actually take the leap?
That's the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.